Welcome back to our Let's Play of Yakuza Like a Dolphin. Every time we learn more about Sarainik's powers, it just feels like watching Togashi turn up the heat on the Karapaka in the pot. Hunter x Hunter chapter 418 Quick Thoughts. Why is Sarainik out mogging Camilla? Togashi is having way too much fun with him as both a character and a concept. He loves Sarainik as a toy. You can tell by the way he draws him multiple armpit shots in one chapter. That's wild. And that love does not bode well for anyone really apart from the man himself. Sarainik being the only one wearing PPE, a mask, in the middle of a boat that's potentially about to explode into a full-scale epidemic. It's so funny, it's terrible. Sarainik's disguise nullifies the chance he could catch TSK even by chance, unintentionally protecting him from the one plot point which could kill him. Benjamin really out here infecting everyone except the one guy he actually needed to infect, and it's just brutal knowing it probably actually would have worked if Benjamin had sprayed him with the TSK, because at this point, Sarainik doesn't know that that disease exists yet, but Benjamin didn't do it, and therefore now it's too late. Sarainik in the vents was a joke, but he's genuinely being let out of his enclosure for a little jaunt around the boat now. Oh, we're just boned at this point, I think. Especially if he decides to climb up Melody's balcony to bring her flowers when he swings by the Justice Bureau. I just need to stop asking for my favorite characters to get screen time, because whenever they do, they just get more doomed. First Balsamilko, now Theta, and we'll talk about Heinrich a little later. It was good to see her again though. Sarainik actually being kind of fond of Theta in his bizarre, messed up way is always amusing to me. He'd love it if she put up a struggle and actually managed to damage him, or his plans actually managed to challenge him. This concept though, that Theta can see Sarainik, is interesting and thus I hope true. The strikes from his beast providing some sort of boon to the marked, even if slight, is a fun idea which would potentially allow Theta to play a role in the future even if she is doomed. Through his strikes, Sarainik has marked Theta as a part of his collection, but perhaps that means the connection goes both ways, allowing her some track on him even if vague, even if she can only sense his general direction. At the same time though, I wonder if the marks and what happened last time she tried to stop him have affected Theta mentally in some way. And by that I mean, what's running through her head right now? Is she formulating a new plan to stop him, or are we potentially going to get a twist reveal that Theta now feels more loyal to him with the second strike setting in if the Nen Beast has some level of manipulative affinity? My main takeaway from this chapter was just, oh boy, Sarainik the Explorer time. If Sarainik really is leaving Tier 1, he could potentially link back up with his subordinate sandwiches. While I doubt he's as fond of the sub-sandwiches as they are of him, they're probably not even on his radar, honestly. If they bump into each other, he'd probably use them for something if he wants pawns to test the limitations of his abilities, or he wants to make some sort of play on the other tiers of the ship. While Borkson has a part to play in the Haley plot and Gipper might factor into events on Tier 1, the remaining members of the group are essentially cannon fodder at this point, and I'm curious what Togashi wants to do with them story-wise. Sari's terrific trip might give him the excuse to either make them more plot relevant or kill them off, or both. Translation non-trifles, we're getting into the general discussion now. Last week we talked about Karapaka, and one of the details I mentioned was his current position in the Nostrade Mafia family, which the official English translation stated to be boss in chapter 346. On that video, several people commented that this title was actually a mistranslation on Viz's part, and Karapuka's actual position in the Mafia family is something else. Last week we had the Karapuka crash out. I guess this week we're doing the translation error one. Okay. Ready, set, go. Still one of Illumi's freakiest panels, by the way. Why does he look like that? A quick disclaimer, the explanation and reasonings I'm about to give comes from me, myself, and I, which does mean there's a margin of error because I do not speak Japanese. Keep that in mind, but it also means it's not parroted from the fandom grapevine. If anyone else has talked about this, I haven't seen it. This was an independent investigation. Translation errors are actually one of the reasons I own a set of Japanese physicals for the DCP and Succession War arcs. Unfortunately, they've been a thing with Hunter x Hunter for a while now, but I do have a copy of volume 33 in Japanese here. So let's crack it open and take a look at the chapter 346 scene where Karapuka introduces himself to the Zodiacs. Right here is the text box of interest. The formatting is a little different from the English translation, but top left says Karapuka, bottom left says he's a blacklist, bounty hunter, bottom right says which Zodiac group on the voyage he'll be a part of, which is the intelligence team, along with Mizai, Pion, and Sacho. I saw some confusion about this last week, so here's a screenshot from the wiki. Basically, the Zodiac split into teams to better handle the situation on board and after they land. Intelligence team refers to these divisions, not the Mafia. Which just leaves us with the text in the top right-hand corner, the first half of which spells out Nostrade Group, referring to the Nostrade Mafia family. An interesting side note, the word used for the Nostrade Mafia is different from the word used for the other three Mafias, where the Nostrade Mafia is referred to with this character. The Shiyu, Sha'ar, and yes, even the Haley are all referred to with this character. While both characters can refer to family as in crime family and give the same general meaning when tacked onto the end of the Mafia group's name, I wonder if there's some implication here highlighting a fundamental difference between the Nostrade Group and the Kakin Mafias. Perhaps it's as simple as they're two different types of Mafia, since Kakin is a different country, so it could be something like the Yakuza compared to the Italian Mafia, though there's also a chance it implies a difference in how the Mafias function or perceive themselves. I don't know if there's an obvious implication in Japanese conveyed with the difference between these two words, but I can say in Mandarin, and kanji characters originate from Mandarin, Zu, which is the character used for the Nostrades, can refer to any group, whereas the character used for the other three Mafias, Jia, carries more of a familiar implication. Jia is most commonly used to refer to your home and close relatives, which is potentially reflected in how the Shiyu are handling Lynch's death, compared to how the Nostrades reacted to someone like Squala's back in York New. So when I personally hear the Nostrades being referred to as a group using this character, I'm thinking a business group / organized crime group. But when I hear the Shiyu, Sha'ar, and Haley referred to with Jia, I'm instantly thinking, oh, they're mafia. My mind places the emphasis on the family. But even without knowing the specific implied difference in Japanese, I think the important bit is that there is a difference at all. Back on topic, the second part of the upper right-hand corner, which states Karapuka's actual title in the Nostrade Mafia, is our text of interest. So this text is Wakagashira in Japanese. So sorry for the pronunciations, I'm trying my best. And according to multiple Japanese dictionaries, the word means the leader of a crime syndicate's henchmen or young leading subordinate in a Yakuza group. Apparently this title is often shortened to Kashira, meaning the leader or the head, giving Kurapika a somewhat equivalent title to Crollo, who's famously the head of another organized crime family, in a way, the Spider, and that amuses me greatly. I'll use this shortened version going forward. So 1, yes, Viz fucked up the official English translation. Reading Hunter x Hunter as an English fan is reading the series at a debuff. But 2, let's go a little further and figure out what exactly this title means and what it means for Kurapika specifically. What exactly is a Kashira in a Mafia family? What position/role is that? Because the dictionary definition just implies it's a position of power, but we can go further beyond that. We can still go higher. Looking at these Japanese Mafia organizational structure charts, yes, the screenshot in the middle is from the Yakuza Games wiki, implies the title Kashira doesn't mean a leading figure for the Mafia, but rather the leading figure for the Mafia. A Kashira isn't just a high-ranking Mafia executive, it's the second in command of the entire Mafia. There are not multiple Kashira, only one. So of course we gotta reel back that little breath of relief for Kurapika, because in some ways, Kurapika being the Nostrade family's Kashira might actually be worse than being the Oyabun, the boss, because rather than sit around and eat caviar and pet cats, like what we see on Yor and Broccoli doing on the ship, the Kashira actually has to do work. And not just any work, they pretty much oversee a lot of the day-to-day operations for the Mafia, organize all the underlings, keep the structure in check. It's a lot of pressure and responsibility. I should have known. There's no way Kurapika got a promotion to a role where he can sit and relax for a moment. No, he's got to be working a job that's basically the most demanding job possible to have in an entire crime syndicate. It's not Kurapika if he's not stress maxing for no good reason. But Kurapika being second in command instead of the boss might have some positives, which is why the title of the video isn't Things Got Worse actually, again, even though that does seem to be the plot of every chapter recently. So let's make some adjustments to our current read on the Nostrade situation. Because Kurapika is not the boss, there's a chance Light Nostrade is still alive after all. Not guaranteed, but possible. Here are a couple possibilities plotted on a scale from bad to good. 1, both Neon and Light could still be dead, and someone else from the Nostrade family got a promotion to boss. Perhaps the previous Kashira, meaning Kurapika failed to protect both father and child yet, is not the new boss. He just works under them. Another possibility is Neon is dead, but her father Light is alive, but he suffered some sort of emotional/psychological breakdown, leaving him in a vegetable-like state, very in character for Hunter x Hunter Oyabuns being associated with veggies and all, /Light shut himself up in his room scared for his life all day, meaning he can no longer run the Mafia and is more a figurehead, meaning Kurapika has to do all the work and essentially handle everything anyways. Slightly better than that is the possibility Neon is still dead, but Light did not have a mental collapse, meaning even though Kurapika is number 2, Light can still somewhat support him in his duties, and Kurapika doesn't have to handle absolutely everything himself. And then of course the best case scenario, somehow by some miracle both Light and Neon are alive, and the reason Lovely Ghostwriter disappeared from Crollo's book is because Neon somehow got her power back. Although this is obviously the best possible state of events, and thus yes, I want this for Kurapika's mental health, I do think it's quite optimistic. If things with the Nostrades were really going the best they possibly could have, even if the eye recovery mission was wearing him out, I just really don't think Kurapika would look that bad when we catch back up to him. The implications of the scene where Crollo says Neon's ability disappeared and Shizuku calls Bandit's secret a death note, just no good vibes from that. I really do think we're supposed to take away that Neon is dead from that scene. Out of all these possibilities, I think the second one, with Kurapika effectively being the new head of the Nostrade family, even if he's not officially the head in title yet, is probably the most likely. It would also explain why the Kashira of a crime organization can just decide himself to fuck off on a voyage for who knows how long to halfway across the world on personal business with no pushback from the boss. Although I am deeply glad we did look into this translation error, it might not change too much for Kurapika's actual situation in practice. What I took away most from this Mafia hierarchy exploration actually is what this means for the other Mafias. Or should I say, the other Kashiras. It made me realize Heinrich and Kenny aren't merely high-ranking Mafia members, but rather the second-in-commands for their respective Mafias, meaning if anything were to happen to the brothers Vegetable, traitorous Kenny could actually become the new leader of the Sha'ar, which would break the three-way power balance, as the Haley and Sha'ar would essentially be aligned, working toward the same goal, which would give them a massive leg up to overpower the Shiyu. But before we dive into that further, let me wrap up this translation trouble section by saying Kashira is not the ideal English translation for Kurapika's title in the Nostrade family, because using that word would require an asterisk and a footnote with a full explanation, because that's not a word that exists in the English language. A strong translation is not a one-to-one dictionary translation necessarily. Context and nuance are important and actively influence which words should be chosen to best convey the meaning of the original text in the new language in a way speakers of the new language will understand. So the goal is really to minimize all these things like footnotes. The best translation for Kurapika's title here would not be a Japanese word phonetically spelled out, Kashira, or a literal dictionary definition like young boss or weak head, which is the literal translation of the kanji, because they don't convey the most important part, which is that this title means its bearer is the second in command. But the most baffling part about all this is there is a better translation for the title, and it's already in the official English version of the manga, meaning at any point Viz could have gone back and fixed this error along with all their other errors and just chose not to. It's not the translator's fault, the translation is subpar, it's the company's fault, and Viz should be held more responsible for delivering an insufficiently edited product pretty consistently as well. But the state of translations in the manga localization industry is a diatribe for another day, a pretty long one as well, with many publishing companies recently attempting to begin replacing human translators with AI. We'll talk about that in some other future video. The English translation for Kurapika's title shouldn't say boss, since that's a mistake, or even young boss, as I've seen some scanlations say. Instead, the best translation for Kurapika's title in English would be underboss, as it directly defines Kurapika's current position in the Nostrade Mafia family in a way English readers are more likely to understand, because the position underboss is the equivalent second-in-command position in a Western version of an organized crime family. Here's a picture of the Yakuza hierarchy next to the hierarchy of the Italian-American mafias. The West doesn't have Yakuza, but we do have the Western Mafia. You can see here that underboss is the equivalent position to Kashira. And using that translation for Kurapika would also, importantly, put him on the same level as Heinrich and Kenny when those two Kashira are introduced as underbosses in the Succession War arc. As it is now, because they have different titles in the official English translation, I never made the connection they hold equivalent positions until this week. I was curious if the original Japanese of chapter 378 used the same characters when introducing Heinrich and Kenny, where the English translated their titles as underboss, and yes. As you can see from my volume 36, the Japanese uses the exact same characters, Wakagashira, it did for Kurapika's title, meaning it'd be very obvious to Japanese readers Heinrich, Kenny, and Kurapika all hold the same positions in their respective mafias. Their titles are the exact same word in Japanese. I think this realization is actually quite important to the story as a whole. Underbosses. Imagine all the fanart of Heinrich and Kurapika hanging out we could have had by now with a correct translation. I kind of want to see them having something like a wine and crime night, solving an Agatha Christie murder mystery book together or something like that. If you were curious, the way I landed on this pronunciation for Heinrich is, his name is Henry, right? But it's spelled Hinrigh, which indicates a Germanic pronunciation to me, and that would be something along the lines of Heinrich with a guttural Rich. His name means ruler of the house, by the way, very fun. Now that guttural sound doesn't exist in English, and his name isn't Henry one-to-one, not exactly, so I wanted to change the end sound a little to emphasize it isn't a generic Henry, but more a unique Togashification of the name, either Heinrich or Heinrich, and I do prefer the latter, leaving us with the spelling Heinrich, Heinrich. Of course, that's just my best guess, and when the Succession War anime drops in a couple decades, we'll probably have to adjust to the new pronunciations, especially for characters like Cyrenic. Might change it later, but that's the thought process for now. Heinrich is so weird looking. I love him. Easily one of my favorite side characters this arc. Something about his eyes makes me feel so paternal. He looks like some object/animal that was turned into a human with his ability. I actually like Kenny's design as well, and his creepy Zodiac killer smile, but Kenny being a turncoat, inexcusable. By the way, Kenny's last name is pronounced O in Japanese, which is king, and the kanji for that is this symbol, which yes is pronounced O in Japanese, but also means king in Chinese, and guess what it's pronounced in Chinese? It's pronounced Wang, which is how Kenny's last name is translated in English. It's spelled W-A-N-G phonetically in the English translation. Even though yes, Wang is a common last name and there are no accents on it, meaning it could technically be a different word, King was instantly the first reading of W-A-N-G I thought of, and looking at the Japanese text pretty much confirms to me Kenny's full name is basically Kenny King. So we got King Kenny, we got ruler of the house Heinrich, and Kurapika over here with Emperor time. So yes, his name is probably pronounced Kenny Wang as in king, but honestly, he deserves to be called Kenny Wang because he's a dick for cheating on Heinrich with Morena. What is with my goats having no luck in the romance department? First, Kaiser being unfaithful to Melody, and now this Kenny smooching on Morena's situation. Which yes, Kenny could be infected with contagion, even if Morena's ability cap is 22 members, and he doesn't count as one of those 22, though he could also count as one of the 22 since Morena's at 21 known members right now, leaving a slot for her boy toy. But even if he doesn't, Kenny could still be infected because Morena's had contagion for years, meaning he could be from a previous member's new contagion colony, or Kenny himself could be a level 100 member 0 with the power to start his own colony. And if he's turned the Sha'ar into this new colony, that would mean even the grunts could potentially be loyal to him instead of to Broccoli. But my thoughts on them as people aside, let's talk thoughts on them as characters. I actually didn't really clock just how important Heinrich and Kenny were when they were introduced, even with the correct title translation, because I didn't know enough about Mafia hierarchies. I don't think most people are proficient in the specifics to understand what underboss means exactly. I thought, yes, these characters are important, but there's probably multiple underbosses in each mafia, because I thought that title was the equivalent to something like a capo, So I was thinking Heinrich and Kenny were the Hunter x Hunter equivalent to someone like Bruno or Pulpo, when no, they're actually the equivalent to someone like Doppio, who was Diavolo's second in command. Having my Mafia knowledge come almost entirely from JoJo's Part 5 actually kind of tripped me up here, because Doppio and Diavolo don't have a traditional underboss-boss relationship in that series, and JoJo's doesn't really emphasize that the dynamic they do have is because of that professional relationship. It's implied to be the way it is more due to the unique personal relationship between those two characters. They've got that special situation going on. But now that we do know, underboss meaning second in command of the entire Mafia, and actually it can be read that Heinrich and Kenny are pretty much calling the shots, while Onyor and Broccoli are more figureheads, especially with Benjamin taking them into custody in 417. When the boss of a Mafia is imprisoned, the underboss becomes the new acting head. This action by Benjamin actually becomes very relevant and dangerous to the balance of power on the Black Whale, because it essentially gives Heinrich and Kenny complete, uncontested power over the Shiyu and Sha'ar mafias, and we as readers know Kenny is a traitor working with Morena. So that basically instantly shatters the delicate balance of power between the three mafias, which Heinrich and Kenny were upholding earlier in the arc. Benjamin's martial law actions essentially just destabilized Kakin further by consolidating the Sha'ar and Haley interests-wise against the Shiyu 2v1. Instead of the power being split three ways, it's now unbalanced in Morena's favor, since Kenny the underboss, and as a result basically the entire Sha'ar, is on her side as well. Will my favorite characters please stop collecting death flags? Or I guess they can keep doing it, I don't know. Shal and Kortobi dying did move them up ranks on my Phantom Troop tier list. But yeah, the Sha'ar being in Morena's pocket doesn't bode well for Heinrich or Lucerus. Speaking of underbosses, that leads me to wonder, does the Haley have an underboss? It's entirely possible they don't, since the Haley is said to not really be acting as a traditional Mafia family anymore after Morena took over, but it's just as possible that they do. And it's a little suspicious that we were introduced to 3 Mafia factions and 3 bosses, but only 2 underbosses. If the Haley does have an underboss, who is it? It's this chick. It's gotta be. The fact she doesn't have a name yet is wild, but as a chronic fan of incomplete visual novels that tease new characters then go into development hell for years on end, it's nothing I'm not used to. I do already have a placeholder name for a couple other characters and a couple powers, like for Cyrenics Nen Beast. If you're curious, my placeholder name for Cyrenics Beast is Totentanz, which refers to the classical piece Totentanz, meaning Dance of the Dead, by Liszt, which I think is not only fitting and has religious ties, but also a classical music choice for a psychopath. Amusingly reminds me of the main character from A Clockwork Orange, who has a lot of traits I see amplified in Cyrenic. But a placeholder name for this lady, it's a little tough without knowing her Nen ability and role in the story. For example, if her ability has something to do with sensory manipulation, I wouldn't mind something like Süßkind, which is a reference to the book Perfume, the Story of a Murderer, a pretty famous and gruesome tale about a man who makes perfumes out of human body parts, so intoxicating it makes people want to eat him alive. The author also published a novella named The Pigeon, which is a bonus tidbit of amusement. Or if it's genuinely confirmed she's the Haley underboss, I'd definitely want to incorporate some sort of king/ruler character into her name, so she'd match with Heinrich and Kenny, perhaps a surname of Rex, meaning king in Latin. We could probably even figure out some way to nod to the song Brutus Rex by the Buttress, which of course references one of the historical figures who killed Julius Caesar. If this Haley lady ends up killing Kaiser, I'd honestly laugh. After all, Caesar did have 23 stab wounds, and Morena plus her 22 Twitch subscribers is 23 Haley members. The assassination of Caesar is one of the most historically famous attempted violent overthrows of a dictatorship, which is vaguely similar to how the Haley are wielding violence in an effort to overthrow the current Kakin system of power, though they don't plan on stopping there. I'm not married to either idea, but my only other thought for a name for her is Ketchup, because I keep thinking of the Animal Crossing character. Every single time I see this lady, I just think Ketchup, which is the name of this red duck character with the little green hair sprout. You know what, why fight it? If Togashi wants this character to be called something more dignified than a condiment, he can give us her actual name. Until then, if Ketchup really is the Haley underboss, I'm terrified of what Togashi wants to do with her. Morena already has so many people on her side. It's so much set up for just another entropy factor. I have a general grasp on what Morena represents individually as a person, but the Haley in general scare me as a faction of pieces on the board. What do we need all these Nen users for? Togashi, haha, you're so sexy, please don't kill everyone on this ship. The easiest guess for Ketchup's story role in particular is perhaps this is setting her up as an opponent for Heinrich. In fact, if the Haley underboss's main job is to take out or nullify him, which would effectively kneecap the Shiyu, their only remaining Mafia competition, her Nen ability could already be active, especially if one of the conditions of her power is to meet her target face to face, enter their proximity, or speak with them. All three are things she's already done with her first interaction with Heinrich in chapter 390. Again, it's possible the Haley don't currently have an underboss, but it'd be kind of more fun if they did. It's a tad suspicious we don't have her name yet when the rest of Morena's crew have been introduced, when one text box during her conversation with Heinrich would have been all it took to give us her name. And what's more fun, Ketchup being a random Haley fodder member, or her having an important role to play in the story and potentially a cool power to match. And with 4 Mafia underbosses, that would instantly bring to mind another infamous set of 4 figures. And it's not difficult at all to cast the underbosses as those figures. Off the top of my head, I'd say for Conquest, Kenny; for War, Heinrich; for Famine, Kurapika; and for Death, Ketchup. Togashi, please give us her name. To strengthen those castings, we can talk about how Conquest is associated with a bow and a crown, and Kenny's last name is Wong, which is king, and kings wear crowns. We can talk about how Conquest rides the white horse, which can be a symbol of false purity / deception. We can talk about how War, who rides the red horse, is associated with civil war / internal strife, which could refer to how Heinrich is dealing with not only a partnership with the Phantom Troop breaking down, but also the impending collapse of the existing Mafia power balance. We can talk about how Famine, astride the black horse, commonly holds a set of scales, potentially alluding to Kurapika's current balancing of multiple situations and his own goals. And yes, Kurapika could be just as destructive as the other underbosses if he loses his temper at a critical point in time, / with some of the actions he's taking on Tier 1. It does not bode well at all that Kurapika can be considered one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse on this boat. Kurapika, please stop adding increasingly stressful things to your scales. We understand you're great at juggling. And lastly, Death upon the Pale Horse is followed closely by Hades / Death, which could be Morena, Contagion, or even the Haley faction's general murder hobo energy. And the Horseman Death is known for heralding the death of 1/4 of the earth by sword, violence, famine, resource shortage. By the way, the Shah R Mafia controls resources on the Black Whale, and with Kenny on Morena's side, they could potentially enact a resource restriction / barricade and starve people on the lower tiers of the ship out. The Horseman Death also brings about plague, contagion, and the wild beasts of the earth, perhaps referring to Nen abilities, Dogman, or some other factor. There's also an entire section on the wiki about how the Horseman Death is credited for many events which led to the downfall of the Roman Empire, which is, of course, once again interesting with the Haley seeking to bring ruin to first the Empire of Kakin and then the rest of the known world. But now that we've had our fun, explored the idea, I'm actually going to ask you to completely disregard the past couple of minutes and put that train of thought out of your mind completely. While yes, it is fun to say, hey, these 4 characters kind of look like heralds of doom when standing next to each other, and it'd be hilarious if they dressed up as their respective horsemen for a Halloween photo shoot. It's fun to think about it as a thought experiment as a fan, but I don't want to actually see the Underbosses embody the horseman roles one-to-one in the story itself. I don't want to actually be able to predict what Cyrenic is going to do due to time spent in the Bible fandom. Heinrich, Kenny, and Karapika are fantastic as underbosses, and they're well written enough to stand on their own feet as original characters, even without the horseman thematic scaffolding. It'll be completely okay if there's only 3 underbosses, but do I still want Ketchup as an underboss? Indubitably. I just think Heinrich versus Ketchup would be a super fun fight. We don't even know her power yet, but who doesn't want to see 2 attractive people beat each other bloody? That's everything I wanted to ramble about this week. Feel free to check the description below for links to a lot of the articles I mentioned during the translation section. I'll also paste the Japanese characters we discussed there so you can copy and paste them for further research / fact checking if you feel so inclined. I'm not mad at having to adjust my read due to the translation error. Adjusting theories is par for the course of making them, and we got to explore further as a result, but I am disappointed that Viz does not fix their errors even for the physical releases of their manga. I haven't even talked about the utterly botched translation of Benjamin's Guardian Spirit Beast's ability yet, and that's a pretty bad one. It's going to make no sense to official onlys when Benjamin loses that coin toss. But yeah, my favorite part of the discussion today was the underbosses. Why is the first qualification for becoming a Mafia underboss in Hunter x Hunter having a lethal face card? Thanks for tuning in this week. This is probably honestly one of my favorite episodes to make. I just had such a fun time with the research and the characters. Feel free to let me know just how many death flags you think Heinrich has in the comments below. I will see you next chapter whenever that video comes out.